Welcome to Red Pill University. I am Joe. I'm here with Mike, and our special guest tonight is DTC. So, if you haven't guessed, tonight is all about checking your ego at the door, or as we said in the slideshow coming up, ego mastery. So, if you have comments, questions, concerns, please post them down below in the comments section or over on the sidebar if you're doing the live stream. In the future, if you guys want to see specific topics revisited or new subject material, again, post down below in the comments. Let us know what you guys want to see. It could be interviews, sidebar material, what have you. Let us know. All right. You guys ready to get the show on the road?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Really excited to have DTC on here after hanging out this weekend. That was a good
happy
time.
to be here.
Very cool. Also, got our first slide right here. I always keep forgetting to do this. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. We have a private community you can join for free, or you can get into the private community, the more restricted section. It's $5 a month over on patreon.com/thefraternity. And we have a lot of fun over there, mentoring, watch parties, a lot of cool stuff. So getting into ego mastery. So for those that are listening, why mastering your ego is important. Another topic we're going to talk about tonight is cognitive bias and the Dunning-Kruger effect. Do you have an issue with your ego? How to identify them? And lastly, ego, death, or disillusionment.
Yeah, this is not going to be exactly a deep dive, but it really is, I want to say, a primer on ego and how to kind of recognize whether you need to work on it or not.
Yeah, a really full follow-up deep dive to this would be a good 300 series course material.
Yeah, that's a great point.
All right, so why is mastering your ego important? Well, ego prevents personal growth. If you have too much ego, it's just going to get in the way of things. What else do we want to talk about this?
Yeah, DTC, please jump in here.
Yeah, I always jump back to jiu-jitsu because it's my love and it's the way that I killed my ego the most, because it's easily the most difficult thing I've ever done. And personal growth is challenging for a lot of people. They try something, and when you first get in, it looks like it's going to be pretty easy. You're like, yeah, I got this. And then with a little bit more experience, you're like, this is actually kind of hard. And then you get to a point maybe after a year or two that you realize, I might never get this. This is impossible. And you hit like the valley of despair point, and then you give up because your ego says, this is too hard. I don't want to do it. And that's where a lot of people give up in life, in their marriages, wherever they are. They get to the point where they realize how difficult it is and how difficult it's going to be. They see that mountain and they don't want to climb it. They stop.
Yeah, a lot of people don't move out. We talk about moving out of your comfort zone on RPU quite a bit. And a lot of people don't do it because of that reason. As soon as they get out of it, they see, oh, wow, this is nowhere near as easy as I thought it was going to be. And we'll talk a little bit about that in just a moment. But when it comes to moving outside your comfort zone, you touched on, especially married guys. One of the ways that I, started killing my ego was to surround myself with a lot of guys that have their stuff together. We've said this before, you can't learn how to be a man without being around other men. And one of the fun things about, the OIS threads every Tuesday on MRP is, you're journaling for yourself, but people are going to jump in there and call you out if, you are fooling yourself. And that's what ego comes down to, is the lies that you tell yourself a lot of times.
Yep. Yeah. If you're Mr. Know-it-all, if yeah. We're going to get more into that in a little bit. All right. The next bullet here is too much ego can blind you to good decisions. That's kind of what I was just kind of hitting at right there, is if your head is so big that you think you know it all, or you're going to start blinding yourself to opportunities for one, and you're going to start making a lot of mistakes. in some cases, newbie mistakes because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, when you say mistakes, what you mean is things that are not kind of productive and track toward your mission, I think is what you mean. It's really interesting. There some of the content from this week's episode is kind of torn from doubleblindmag.com, and I found this great article about ego and ego death, and what it talks about a lot is the default mode network, which basically has a lot to do with how you filter all your experiences with other people and how you connect and socialize with other people. So that becomes kind of solidified over time. And what ego can do is it can stop you from having that openness and making those connections with other people. And a lot of people get into their adult life and they don't have the marriage they want, they don't have the career they want, they don't have the friends they want, they don't have the relationship with their kids that they want. And often ego stands in the way and they don't know it. And so when you can go back to all your previous beliefs, and we'll break this down a little bit further in just a few moments, but when you can reevaluate those things, really, there's a lot of opportunity for self-improvement, as DTC kind of alluded to.
Yep, I just realized I was muted. Definitely. Let me go ahead and stop sharing the screen for just 1 second. I work on a little thing behind the scenes here. DTC just gave us a really cool image that kind of describes what he's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see if I can add this in really quick. Insert. I gotta find where I just put it. There it is. Yeah, this is a nice little one. Let me see if I can maximize that for you guys.
And just while he's pulling it up, essentially it's just an image that shows kind of a curve where in the left-hand side, the confidence is extremely high. And on the right-hand side, the confidence is extremely high as well. And in the middle, the confidence is at the low point. And if you're going from left to right, it's expertise. And so whenever people start stuff, like I said before, I was kind of alluding to this image where people are thinking that everything's going to be simple, and they actually think they're good at things, whether it's your marriage or whatever it is you're doing. Like when I got married, I was young and I thought it was going to be easy, and I was completely delusional. And if you look at the guy at the end, he's pointing back at the first guy saying, incompetent fool, that one. And so, after 10 years of marriage, I looked back at myself in the beginning of that curve. And I was like, what an idiot. That guy was so dumb. And honestly, if you can't look at yourself every 5 years and look back at the person you were then and say, wow, that guy was an idiot, look at that fool, then you're probably not growing. You should see massive differences in yourself within a year or two. And 5 years is a big mark. 10 years is a massive mark. You should be growing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the Dunning-Kruger effect, essentially, right there. And that's what prevents people from learning. You're muted.
Yes, I do. Just noticed that. Yeah, it's right out of Wikipedia. It's a cognitive bias in which people with low ability at a task or skill overestimate their ability. That's, if you go back right here at the beginning, it's this guy. Look at me. I'm a master. I can do this masterpiece over here. And then as you get into it, you realize, crap, I really don't know what I was doing. So yeah, be aware of the need to have self evaluation. So what this means is, well, you know what, Mike, why don't you go ahead and take this? I think this was your bullet, right?
The need to be able to evaluate yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it makes sense that when you actually, when you don't know what you don't know, essentially, it's difficult to objectively evaluate yourself. And so just understanding that in order to, kind of, again, be a man, be somebody who is constantly improving and growing, then you need to surround yourself with other like-minded people. And so I've said for a long time that if you're not improving yourself, then you're kind of destroying yourself. I mean, it's not quite so diametrically opposed, but in a sense,
I would agree with you, bro. You're either decaying or you're growing.
Yeah, kind of. Tonight's bro tip kind of piggybacks on that concept.
At best, you're stagnating, and so if you want to be interested in self-improvement, or if you want to be oriented towards self-improvement, then what you need to do is surround yourself with other people that are going to hold you accountable to, we'll get to this later, but hold you accountable to be able to essentially look at yourself and say, hey, am I really the person I thought I was?
Yeah, and that's really the problem with a lot of guys is they're not willing to look in the mirror and have an objective view on themselves because they can't. And so their wives will henpeck them, and then they'll disagree with their wives and say it's their fault, and they'll blame them. When the reality is the problem is always the man. And whenever guys show up to MRP, they say she, and all they can do is talk about the people around them. And we're all like, we don't care about anyone else in this equation here. We understand that people are challenging, but ultimately the issue is you and your inability to deal with those people and the challenge that they are bringing to you. You're not man enough to deal with it. So you flip out about it. You drink too much. You go play video games and hide in your man cave. Whatever it is that you do, you don't man up and own your stuff.
Yep. The key takeaway here, though, it is a need for self-evaluation.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about what standards you'll use in just a second. So the next bullet here is to be critical in our own evaluations. And again, the follow on to this is to balance them against known standards. You're not winging it. You're not going to you're not going to blow smoke up your own ass. We have established standards for whatever it is. That's the criteria you've got to measure yourself against.
Well, that in fairness, that works the other way too. Be critical in your own evaluations, meaning don't tie your self-image to what everybody else tells you. This is a key part of frame. You need to be your own judge. If everybody tells you that, you know what, you'll never make it as a doctor, right? If everybody's telling you that and you are going through medical school and you really believe that you have what it takes to be a doctor and you're doing the work and you're progressing, you're doing well in medical school, why would you not believe? You know, if everybody's just telling you that and there's no basis for it, you got to be your own judge, right? If you are getting the grades and working hard, and you know your mentors or your teachers and the people that are on that career path or on that path to help you to get to that career path are reinforcing that to you, and there's other people who don't know anything about that profession that are trying to hold you back, as a for instance, then you know, be critical in dismissing that feedback or that criticism, so to speak.
Yeah, and this is where the known standards comes into play. You're going to have people that they're full of shit. They're the crab bucket mentality. Maybe it's a social circle, and they're keeping you down in a sense, saying you're never going to make it in XYZ career. But if you're actually doing the study, you're doing the work, you're going and doing the internships, if you're doing it and you're getting that positive feedback from the actual experts who follow the node standards and all that, then you can ignore the peanut gallery, like Mike was saying.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the standards. As long as you're meeting the standards, that's the important part to take away from this.
Yeah.
But again, it's that need to evaluate yourself against actual standards. So don't be part of that peanut gallery who's blowing smoke up your ass, because you can do it to yourself and psych yourself out as well. So
You had some,
yeah, there's a quote that was banging around in my head, and I actually kind of want to throw a curveball and ask you guys a question about this one, but there's a quote from Marcus Aurelius that he says, be tolerant with others and strict with yourself. It's essentially being open to the idea that people are going to be stupid, unreliable, whatever. That's just them. You know, let them be them. That's their business. It's not inside your control. But you have to be disciplined with yourself, right? So you're critical with yourself. You're hard with yourself. You're gentle with others. But then at the same time, to have self-compassion, you want to be kind with yourself, right? So you don't want to be critical too much. You want to be gentle, because sometimes people like myself or Mike or other perfectionists, we beat ourselves to death with our failures. And that's actually just another form of ego too, which is hilarious.
yeah, where it holds yourself back. I think we're going to touch on that in the next slide. Yeah. So do you have an issue with your ego? Too much or too little? You got to kind of strike that right balance. This is where a lot of folks can get into trouble. So check your belief system for confirmation bias. So some examples. Are you always right? Do you think you're the smartest person in the room? Do you always dismiss other people's opinions? And then there's the duality aspect. Do you always believe this or that? Mike, you got to take this one, because that was a really good one how you started to talk about it before in the pre-show.
Yeah, which one? The confirmation bias?
Yes, but I was looking more specifically to duality.
Yeah, so let's first take a step back here and define what confirmation bias is, which is that you have an existing set of beliefs and all the information that comes into your brain conforms to that belief set, right? So for example, and let me just risk using a political example here. And I'll take the other side of things because I tend to lean a little bit right. So if I'm a Democrat, right, and some information comes in, some news story or whatnot, I'm automatically going to assume because a Republican said something that that's a bad thing, right? That the thing they want to do is a bad thing simply because that's where it's coming from.
Yeah.
How this ties into duality is if there's always a black and white version of something, meaning like let's say again everything's polarized, and this is in large part kind of a symptom of our culture. I think everybody in our culture is largely obsessed with themselves and care too much about social media and their perception of who they are. And I think what that leads to is the symptom that we have, which is this culture war, right? Everybody believes one thing or another, and if you're not with me, then you're against me. And that duality, that really strong polarization of thought process and opinion, again, it keeps you from connecting with people. It keeps you from looking at yourself objectively and identifying which beliefs aren't serving you well. Because if you are dead set on one set of beliefs, and no matter what happens in the external world, you're going to stick to those beliefs, at some point you're bound to make a decision that's probably not best for you, or probably not best for you and best for the people in your life.
Yep. DTC, any other additions?
Yeah, I'm just going back to the idea of Dunning-Kruger effect. If you see this in the workplace, it's really detrimental, especially in people in management positions, or even worse if it's fathers who think they're good at things but they're really not. So participants were asked to compare themselves in a performance on grammar. They tested themselves and tested others, and they used information to refine their self-assessments. And they found out the top performers, they slightly underestimated their grammar competence relative to others. And so that happens in work. You have people who think they're really good at what they're doing, and their ego gets in the way, and they're really bad leaders, and they end up hurting people. And that's what happens in leadership positions is if you have an ego and you think you're the smartest person in the room and you don't listen to anyone else and you're really just a retard, you're going to end up hurting people, and it's dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
You just briefly touched on the opposite of this too, where there's folks who are on the proficient end of the spectrum, but they underestimate their capabilities. That's the other side of this coin.
I think a lack of true confidence, when you have good reason to be confident about something, a lack of true confidence can hurt you. So for example, if you are somebody who's a weightlifter and you're going for a 400, 500 pound deadlift, that is a big mental game trying to get a 1 rep max that heavy. So if for some reason you are, training and you're within, a striking distance of that goal, and you are stuck believing that you are this weak person that can't hit that goal, deep down in your core, you are not going to be able to activate the, that mental acuity or that aggressiveness to be able to actually get over the hump and get that 1 rep max.
And that brings us right to the next bullet point with defensiveness, anxiety, and neurosis.
Mm-hmm.
That's where these kinds of things manifest. And then lastly, we have the personality disorders. That's your narcissism, psychopathy, and I forget, just one blank on the other one for the dark triad.
Machiavellian.
There you go. So that's
So let me touch on
Yep.
Let me touch on the first three, and then DTC can talk about the last one here. So when you talk about defensiveness, anxiety, and neurosis, what this has to do with is you have essentially a chronic ego problem, and it may not be necessarily a significant one, but you've had it for long enough that when you're defensive, you constantly compare other people's opinions of you, and you're constantly ready for criticism, right? And there's a problem with you somewhere deep down in your ego of how you kind of see yourself. And when you're constantly anxious, same thing happens, right? So this general neurosis will manifest itself in a lot of ways. A lot of people will, like DTC said, they'll drink, they'll do things to cope, they'll bite their nails, they will always pick up their phone, they will fixate on certain things, they will avoid certain behavior, or conversely, they'll take risk-taking behavior to the next level, right? And that general anxiety can manifest in a lot of ways. Once you've gone to a deeply acute problem at a significant growth stage in life, particularly for younger people, that's when the personality disorders come into play. And I'd like to get DTC's take on that.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what happens to the people, because an ego is really just a child who's been hurt, and that's what creates a bad ego. Like, I was talking to someone that said Mike Tyson wasn't a bad person. He was just a hurt child, and then got treated as cattle essentially, and then turned into this machine, and his ego got out of control, and look what he became for a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And then he reined in his ego, and now he's actually a pretty decent guy. You look at Mike Tyson now versus who he was a young man. He was a completely different human being. And, really, he is a different human being. When your brain chemistry changes, you become a different person. And the person he was that as a 20-year-old man is not who he is now. So he is a different person.
Oh, man, it's a great example.
I've met him a couple of times back in the 90s. He was just a chill dude back then.
Really?
I think a lot of it is just the lead up to what put him in jail. That's a whole other issue what happened with Don King. But
yeah,
my personal interaction with him, I thought he was a cool dude.
That's an extreme situation, but I mean, I was brought up in a way where I experienced trauma, and I had to develop a personality disorder to defend myself because I didn't have my needs met. And the person that I was married to also had severe childhood trauma. Oof. And that can create, dual personalities, literally multiple personalities, because they have to defend themselves, and they have to create this alter ego to scare other people off. And hers was this masculine person who thought she was powerful and thought that she was really good at stuff, that she could do anything, and she really couldn't. So it created this thing where we had this giant pissing contest because I actually was competent, and she just had this massive ego that couldn't believe that I was actually good. And so what she actually told me at the end of our marriage was, it's just because I'm jealous of you, so that's why I attack you. She actually admitted it. She let go of her ego because she knew I was leaving. And she's like, I'm just jealous of you because I'll never be who you are. And that is literally what someone who has borderline personality would say. That's like the part of it. They're just jealous and they don't know how to deal with it. So they have to attack you, and they have to make you that bad person that they need you to be. So the ego is dangerous, man.
Bringing back memories. I think we've all been through there at least once.
Yeah. I mean, most guys come to the red pill because they've had a bad relationship, but it's interesting that you note that that these are defense mechanisms that are formed, which really a lot of people, especially the people that are anti-red pill or purple pill or blue pill or whatnot, they'll bemoan the people that are manipulative or dark triad, Machiavellian people. But really, these folks have developed these mechanisms in order to just function throughout their everyday life because they don't want to be taken advantage of. Now, we can place a value on whether that's attractive or not, and we can say how effective that is in terms of the sexual marketplace. But for the purposes of this week's discussion, ultimately, 9 times out of 10, that develops as a defense mechanism because somebody's trying not to get manipulated and be hurt.
Yeah, exactly. I don't ever want to be put in that situation where I'm hurt like that again. So I had to create this shield to not be vulnerable.
And with that, how do you get through that? The ego disillusion. So we should have defined that earlier, what is ego, but getting to this point, I think the other information is very essential.
Yeah, and I love the fact that we define it here in the middle because people are actually going to do the work and they're going to have to watch 20 minutes of this video to get the meat and potatoes out of it. That's great.
What is ego? And this is kind of a pop psych, but also a little bit of an academic kind of take on it. It's the culmination of 3 components of the human psyche. You've got the self-image, which is the view an individual holds of themselves. Self-esteem, which is how much value is placed on oneself. And then the self-identity, the many beliefs, ideologies, and affiliations that an individual holds. So self-image, self-esteem, self-identity. These combine to create one's ego. Mm-hmm. All right. So how do we the ego disillusion? We used to say ego death. If we go into this, it's really how to master your ego. So seeing yourself objectively with objective truth. Objective truth. We've talked about this just a little bit ago with not blowing smoke up your ass, not allowing detractors who are not experts in their field, who are not using some sort of established standard to judge you against.
Mhm.
It's got to be an objective truth, standard, what have you, that you're being judged against.
Yeah, it's interesting when you have these ego mechanisms where you're reacting essentially to other people's perceptions of you, and that is you're allowing that to define who you are. When you are basing who you are off of other people's reactions to you, and then in turn you are emotionally reacting to that, or your thoughts are reacting to that, then you are reacting to a reaction which is subjective to the next level. You're so far away from the truth of who you are and who you can be that it's essentially just not a functional way to be. There's no type of frame there. You're not your own mental point of origin.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think the most objective truth you can find in with men is fighting. If a lot of people who fight, like in street fights, they actually think they know how to fight, and they start mouthing off because their ego gets in the way. And a lot of people think they know how to fight, and then they get into a fight, especially with someone who knows how to fight,
Mhm.
and they get objective truth.
Yeah,
And
speaking of Mike Tyson, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
right. And so I think the greatest way for people to learn some objective truth about themselves is go do some really hard things.
Just go fight people all the time.
Yeah, go fight people. No, I'm serious. Go wrestle, go do
Yeah.
boxing, go do Muay Thai, do something really technical.
Mhm.
Even playing pool. Like you can go play pool with people who are really good, and they'll show you how bad you are at playing pool, and you get embarrassed.
Yeah, go lift heavy weights for
The
sure.
iron, the iron doesn't lie.
Iron does not lie.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And that's how you find objective reality is you match yourself up to something and you say, oh, I can do this. And then you find out. So
Yep.
go try and climb a mountain, like a really big one, and then see where you stand. See if you're good enough to do it.
So, and again, this comes back to owning your shit. Kind of already talked about the other one right there. Use external perspectives to internalize a more objective self-image. Now, that's a mouthful. That's a lot to kind of chew on right there. Using an external perspective to internalize a more objective self-image.
Yeah, let me unpack this one a little bit. It goes to what I was talking about earlier. When you rely on other people's opinions of yourself and you're reacting to that, you're pretty far from objective truth. The other side of that is if you don't have a really great idea of who you are, and if you have a massive ego problem, exposing yourself to people who you know are going to be honest with you and tell you, look, you're insane. Like you're outside of your mind for thinking that you know what you're talking about in life. You don't have your finances together. You don't have your relationships together. You are fat. You don't have your health in order. All of those things that you need. Sometimes you need a slap in the head from people that have their stuff together. And so when you go to those people that do have their life together, those mentors, we talk about mentors probably every week, honestly, and for good reason. They're very, very valuable. But use those external perspectives that are valuable from people that you know that you want to be that person in a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. And then over time, once you get enough advice from them, once you bounce enough ideas off of them and get enough of those opinions, you're going to have this little voice in the back of your head that almost says, what would Joe do in this situation? Right? What would DTC do in this situation? What would Mike do in this situation? And that is going to give you, if you have those multiple perspectives, that's going to give you a better self-image, and you're going to be able to say, that makes a lot of sense, or dismiss that idea entirely. And you're going to have what we talk about perspective as well. You're going to have that perspective, and ultimately, you're going to have a lot of different data points to be able to say, look, I am now my own mental point of origin. And if I feel like I'm off base, I can go to somebody and I can say, am I crazy for thinking this, or am I on track here?
There you go.
And you have to be willing to ask those difficult questions. Either, ask someone what they really think about you, someone close to you who actually knows you. And, being around really good people is super important because the type of person that you are is comprised of the people that you spend time with. So if you're spending time with people who are not good, then you're not going to be good because they're going to, just sap all their bad stuff into you. So, my jiu-jitsu school, the reason I'm so good at it is because the people around me. Everyone is so good that you have to be good in order to hang with them. And that's super important. Being in a place where you're going to lose is good for you. You should be losing. That's how you learn.
Oh,
If
yeah.
you're not losing, you're not learning.
I got better at weightlifting from having good coaches and failing lifts a lot.
Hmm.
Right. And Joe says this all the time. You are the average of the 5 people that you associate yourself with.
Yep. So I like how this also kind of bring it back around to the sexual marketplace. If you want to be successful with women, a great way of doing that is to have friends who are successful with women.
Oh,
This is not rocket science. All right. So having good wings, having guys that are really sociable, having guys that can go out and work a room, it's going to really supercharge your ability to gain that social mastery, to build that skill set.
We've got time. DTC, do you want to talk about your adventures this weekend with some of the younger guys?
Yeah, I do.
Let's get into that.
We had a great opportunity. Ritten had been speaking to a woman, and she had some friends, and he sent some pictures of me. And then I don't think Vlad was involved in that process, but either way, it was Vlad, myself, and Ritten. We went into a city, and Vlad and I sat at the bar, and Ritten was somewhere else. And then all of a sudden, 2 girls show up at the bar and say, "Hey, DTC." And I turn around and see these 2 smoking hot black chicks. I'm like, "Hi." I go over and I hug them, and I tell the waitress, I'm like, "Hey, we're going to move from the bar and go grab this booth back here. Cool." Took the girls, sat down, got drinks, and then 5-10 minutes later, Ritten rolls in, sits down, and we're in a booth. We're all kind of snuggled up, the me and Vlad and the 2 girls, and then Ritten is like in a presidential chair facing all of us, and we're just kind of sitting in front of him. We're both wearing suits. We look dope as fuck. Vlad has this nice little button up on. He's looking cute as hell. He's bright blue eyes. We both are rocking man buns, just looking awesome.
Just 3 handsome guys. Yeah,
dude,
for sure.
Super ultra Chads in there. It was great. The Chad energy was impressive. And we have these women who are really high-end women that you're not going to find in most places. They've seen it all. They've been around the guys. One of the girls knows Dan Bilzerian. Like personally.
There's the reference. Every week somebody's got to drop that.
Yeah. And I don't know how much of the story I can tell. I don't know what I'm clear to talk about, but
we can hold it right there, because I do have one critical question.
Sure.
So, when this all got started, which one of you looked at the other and said, "Suit up"?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I got a little Barney kind of in the back of my mind here as you guys were getting ready to go out that night. I can't decide. Was it you, Vlad, Ritten? I don't know.
What do you mean? Like suit up as in wearing a suit?
You've never seen How I Met Your Mother? Barney, bro. Oh, dude, it's a good show.
I missed the reference. I'm very sorry.
Oh, look who Ritten just popped in. He's got video, so I can't add him just yet. There he goes. All right.
Boom.
Dude, it's almost like we just called him. He's like, I have to tell the story.
He heard that we were talking
shut the fuck up.
What's up, boys?
Yeah.
What's up, big guy?
Yeah.
All right. So I did want to kind of drop one last piece here on the slide, because we're almost done with this.
Mm-hmm.
So how to master your ego. We kind of went through all the other pieces of this. Tie your self-esteem to your goals and mission. Have accountability to yourself, but in front of others. This is really critical. And then down below, really, let's just hold on to that right there. Accountability to yourself, but in front of others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that means so when I say you are using external perspectives, you're not relying on that as a crutch. Meaning it's okay to ask questions, it's okay to seek out opinions, but it's not okay to only do that and not do the work, right? If you're not setting any goals, if you're not hitting those milestones, if you're not punching in, and you are trying to make the progress on your own, and ask those questions of yourself and say, where did I go wrong? Where do I think I'm doing well? Journaling is a big part of this, right? If you want to journal your progress, I did it for the first 1.5 to 2 years of having discovered TRP. And that I made a lot of progress that way. But along the way, guys started jumping in and saying, here's where you're fooling yourself. You're screwing this up. And the next week I would come back and say, you know what? I got called out. They were right. Here's what I did to fix it. And I was accountable to myself, not to them. And that comes
a really quick example of journaling is the owning your shit threads and posts.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very simple way of doing it.
In a big way. And we do that a lot on homework on the Discord as well.
Yeah, homework every day. People are posting what they did, what they didn't, and goals, things that they're doing to work towards achieving their goals. Yeah. So the next up after that was the meditation, doing difficult things, having the beginner's mindset, and outcome independence. These are, again, tools you can use to master your ego. Meditation is one that is not for me personally, but others find it highly valuable. More power to them. One of the ones we've already kind of touched on tonight was martial arts. The iron doesn't lie. Lift heavy shit up and put it down again. Other difficult things, climbing a mountain, physically challenging tasks are really going to call you on your bullshit. They're going to check your ego at the door very quickly.
Yeah, I would say things that are both physically and mentally challenging for sure.
Yes.
I would say that martial arts specifically, you need to be directly competing with somebody. So I would say that lifting and martial arts are in fact separate.
Yeah, they say martial arts is like lifting, except the weights fight back.
I like that.
It's really hard.
Oh, especially if you're rolling. It's yeah.
We were doing a lot of jits this weekend.
All right, let's see here. The beginner's mindset. I like that. I forget who it was, whose idea that was to add this to the slide. Please take it because
it was DTC.
Was it DTC? All right, go for it, dude.
Yeah. Wait, I'm sorry. What was the slide? I was posting not pictured.
That's right.
Beginner's mindset. Can you talk about that just a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. Having a beginner's mindset means that you go into things knowing that you're going to be bad at it. And when I first started jiu-jitsu, I had a massive ego and I was actually terrified of going, but I had been lifting and I was in really good shape at that point, and I'd been watching UFC videos like crazy. So I had, like, in my mind, I'm like, I can do this stuff like right away. I'm going to be good right away. And so my first day there, I tried to triangle this dude who had been training for about a month, and it didn't work out. I didn't have the technique down properly. I ended up gassing out my legs completely and gassing myself out completely and having an almost panic attack after he got on top of me and started beating my ass. And then he choked me out. And then I asked him, like, hey, how did you do that? And he showed me how to do the triangle and actually choked me unconscious, which is hilarious. It was my first day and I got choked unconscious. So I learned that day, wow, this stuff is way harder than I thought, and I'm going to take a little while to figure it out. And I spent the first year just getting my ass beat because I was super aggressive. And when you're aggressive as a white belt, people are not nice to you. They literally just beat you to death because, like, look at this retard who thinks he's good. We're just going to destroy him. But if you come in with a beginner's mindset and you tell people, hey, I'm new, and you don't put in all of your effort trying to win the whole time, and you're actually trying to learn, you get good pretty quickly. And it's funny, girls who come in tend to get better quicker than guys because for whatever reason, guys try and use muscle and strength and they're morons, whereas girls realize they're small and dainty and they have to use leverage and technique and they actually learn the stuff. So come in with the beginner's mindset. You suck. What's that?
So what you're saying is those guys come in with a big ego and they get their ass stomped because of it.
Yeah, like when new guys come in and they're all jacked, those are the best guys to beat up on and just try and make them leave. Like, I hope that they never come back. I'm like, I'm going to torture you until you leave.
That's awesome.
And my instructor tried to torture me and make me leave. He made fun of me. He hazed me. He would just beat the shit out of me. This black belt, this terrifying man, just used to beat me up in front of people for fun. And I would try and stop and he wouldn't let me. He would just keep tapping me over and over and over again as fast as he could. It was terrifying.
All right.
But I didn't leave.
You didn't leave. And
but part of that, I think, is the final little piece of this is the outcome independence. So you were in there to learn, even though you weren't necessarily, that wasn't your goal per se, but you knew you had to learn it. After that first guy, he tapped you out or choked you out in that case, you realized right then and there, oh shit, okay, maybe I do need to learn something.
Well, I knew it was going to be hard. I didn't realize how hard it was going to be. And then once you started getting to classes and he was teaching you how to do stuff, I would start asking questions and being frustrated. And he's like, why do you think this is going to be easy? You see this belt on my waist? I didn't just get this in a Happy Meal, bro. I've been doing this for a while. You're not going to be good right away. Stop being frustrated with yourself. It's fine. You're supposed to suck. So every time I would ask questions, he got annoyed with me and he would just reply, practice. And that was it. He would move on to somebody else because he knew that I was just being an egomaniac trying to figure everything out right away. He's like, it's not how it works. Take your time.
And this is every bit as applicable to learning the skills of dating. The people skills, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like bringing it back around to the whole, most of the guys viewing this aren't doing it because of martial arts. They want to learn this stuff because of girls or a relationship. Or they've got a girl they've got their eyes set on already who now they're in the friend zone with.
Yeah, which is the last reason to work on your ego. I mean, you got to work on your ego for yourself, for sure.
I mean, getting rejected is good for your ego. These guys, we tell them to do, walk up to girls and just start talking to them and trying to get numbers and just getting shit on all the time. That's great for your ego.
Yeah,
You just have to let it go.
It tracks to doing the difficult things with that outcome independence. You're doing it to learn the skill of doing it. That's the point of it.
And expect to fail. It's okay if you do.
Absolutely.
No big deal.
It's especially good for these young men who have really unrealistic ideas about their own sexual attractiveness. It's especially good for them because they just go out and get crushed. And they have
we talked about that with the online game was,
a more objective view of themselves, right?
Yeah.
Well, that was the funny thing we did this weekend, Joe, is that DTC is a really good teacher, but we'd start from side control as far as jits goes. And it was just, hey, try and break out of this. Mm-hmm. And you get a lot more leeway in that particular circumstance. But then at the same time, one of the same guys that we brought out, you get shoved in this situation. There was a time where our third on Sunday night, we just left him alone because we had to go out and talk about the shot and what we were doing for the night. I was just like, all right, bitch, like it's you and 3 hot girls. Let's see what you got. Because if we come back and it's weird, that's your fault. And what the guy who we left there told me, it was like, for a second, I was worried. Like I felt the anxiety, but then it just went away. All I could do was do it.
Yeah.
You're just trying to teach him group dynamics?
Not even that. It's just the group dynamics were displayed by me and DTC. And then having had that example, he was like, I killed 900 levels of fat in one day.
Yeah.
In 1 minute.
Essentially, he was just already, you guys were all swimming in the deep end together, and then you just let go of his hand and swim to the side of the pool. And we're like, good luck.
We're like,
we
you
can
can
do
do this.
We looked at the sharks.
But we gave him confidence because we
Yeah.
were doing it. So he was able to, pick up what we were doing and display the same energy that we had and just kind of mimic what we were doing, which again, why you need to hang out with people better than yourself. It elevates your levels.
Mm-hmm.
And, a rising tide brings up all ships. So if you hang out with good people, you become good. So he just took our energy and used it.
That's it.
All
And
right,
you,
so,
again, we've said
yeah.
this a lot. You can't learn how to be a man without being around other men, period.
Yep. Now, we talked a little bit earlier about, we're actually getting to the end of the slideshow. Or this is the end of the slideshow. We got one more thing here. I think Mike's ready to do the effects.
Oh, yeah. Pew, pew, pew. Let's do it. Pew, pew. Yeah. Pro tip number 10.
So this is I don't even know where I got this quote from. It's something I've been using for years.
It's very Christmassy.
Yeah, I'll take
well, I'm
credit.
colorblind, so I'll take blame for that. You can always make more money, but you can never make more time. So be mindful of the time hosts, the time wasters. They're out there. Make sure you're not being one yourself. Don't be an energy vampire.
Yeah.
So
Some of them are guys too. Some of them are your guy friends that are not worth having in your life. I always say that the two most precious resources you have are your time and your self-respect, and you can't squander either of those, or you shouldn't squander either of those.
There's a lot that can go into this. Just to keep it simple, though, it's going to be like what Mike was just saying. Don't tolerate people that waste your time. And if you're getting in a situation where you're just going down a rabbit hole, be mindful of sunk cost fallacy, where you've invested so much time or effort or money or whatever in a task, a person, a relationship, a job, whatever.
Oh, man.
If you're not going to get an ROI on it, that's really going to make that worth it. Sometimes you just got to tear up the Band-Aid. You got to cut bait. All right.
That's so true. A lot of guys don't do this in relationships, particularly romantic relationships, where they look back and they go, and if it's the mother of your children, that's of course a consideration. But for a lot of guys, they look back and they go, we don't have anything in common. This is not a person I would have in my life other than you have a shared history with somebody. Friendships are the same way. If you're just friends with your high school buddies for no reason and you really don't enjoy all that much that person has to offer, why would you keep that person in your life if they're not bringing any value to you?
A really critical example of this that I see all the time, and I'm guilty of it too, is staying in a relationship that you're not getting out of it what you put in, where in reality, it's probably time to call it quits and move on. But people are so invested in a relationship, they might have been with them for 10 years. It's like, oh man, if we break up, it's going to be, all that time's wasted.
Oh my God.
That mentality that it's wasted time. No, think about how much more time you're wasting and opportunities you're missing by not cutting loose this albatross around your neck.
You also hit on something interesting from a career perspective, which is, and it relates to this pro tip, which is that the breakup essentially, or you getting fired from your job, is never as bad as you think it is, right? Like almost every guy I've ever known who has gone through a layoff or got fired or quit their job and we're on to the next thing, they usually fall up. They usually fall into a better opportunity if they were doing all the types of things that we're talking about here on the stream, of evaluating yourself, setting some realistic goals, making sure that you're geared toward, personal development and growth. And if you are and geared towards self-improvement, then you're usually going to find a better opportunity.
Yeah, most guys in the middle of the bell curve they're not necessarily fail upwards, but they're not going to, it's not this monumental meltdown that a lot of people think it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really all we have for material tonight. Is there any other topics you guys wanted to discuss while we have you?
DTC written, please. Let's go around the horn.
Viewers too, please post comments, questions. Now you got a pro lineup, so make use of us.
All right, I think I turned on my echo cancellation. Are we doing better here?
A little bit, yeah.
About the same, but it's all good.
I think it's just you're closer to the mic now, helps out.
Yeah. Well, look, boys, if we don't get any comments, you can catch me and DTC on Sunday night, 10 p.m. for After Dark. You get your full call-in questions answered.
Yeah.
Yeah, live on the air. It's going to be awesome. If you guys haven't seen it, we got episode 1. It's already posted up.
Oh, man.
It's demonetized in like 90 seconds flat. It's funny. It's good. It was a good show, though.
Solid gold.
Yeah, if it's demonetized, then it's good. And
Yeah.
this week will be a banger as well because we have some stories to tell. We'll give you a little bit tonight, but there are some stories to tell.
Oh, please. I want to hear more about the whole week's worth of events for sure.
This was just the teaser.
Yeah. So some of that, we got to save it for Sunday night. It's going to be good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if there's nothing else as far as the community, we can call this one tonight. We can head on over to the private community, go to the after show or the live stream channel, and we can continue the discussion there. Any final thoughts?
You don't want to tell the rest of the story, even like a shorter version?
The rest of which story?
The one where you said,
let's save it, man.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, that story's not.
Gives people something to tune into. Plus,
Yeah.
that's very privileged access.
Yeah, that's true.
How about final thoughts on ego for the both of you?
Yes.
Yeah, be okay with losing. That's probably the takeaway I would say. Most people are not okay with losing, and especially losing in front of other men or even their woman. Be okay with losing. Be okay with looking bad. It's part of the process. You have to look bad so you can look good.
And the guys that you conceptualize as alpha, however that happens to play out for you, are people who are receptive to new ideas and recognize that other people are better at certain things than they are, and they're like, hey, can you teach me a little of that? Let's roll.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, you just did something really cool. Can you teach me what that was? And when you show humility, now you have an opportunity for someone else to give their gifts. And now you're both winning, and you have a symbiotic relationship where they're giving and they're feeling good and you're receiving and you're feeling good. But that requires you to be humble enough to actually ask for some help. And that's super important. We had this one guy in the Discord who got banned because he was a retard, and he just really thought that he had things going on. Yeah. And he did not. And so we had to just keep slapping him in the head over and over. And finally, we realized we were just wasting our time because this guy did not want help. He just wanted to mentally masturbate the whole time and talk about things that didn't matter and invest his life in things that didn't matter, and avoided all the things that were a complete train wreck. Like he's just shining up silverware on the Titanic as it's sinking. It's like, bro, what are you doing?
And to your point, there's no amount of humility on him or guys like that. And that was, I think, probably my favorite part of the episode is the fact that somebody mentioned humility, because we all talked about it before the stream, and then we forgot to mention it. But that's a huge takeaway for tonight.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And there's also, he's not the only one. There's been 2 we've had to boot. There might be a 3rd. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's just, that's a fact of life. Not everybody is coachable. So I think we should call it there. We'll head on over to the after show shortly. All right. All right. We'll see you guys on Sunday, 10 p.m.
See you there, guys.